thief and crook, Eobard Thawne, comes into possession of the spare Flash costume. And he puts it on, and he senses that there is residual speed energy in the costume, and that gives him super speed. And so he decides that since he's a villain and he's the opposite of the heroic Flash, he's going to do things in reverse. So he provides the costume with a chemical treatment that reverses the colors of the costume, and Thawne gives himself the dual costumed identity of Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. And from there, Thawne goes on to become a major thorn in Barry Allen's side throughout the remainder of the pre-crisis era. And it's never fully explained during the pre-crisis era, but Thawne has this deep-rooted hatred for the Flash, and he doesn't kill the Flash, but he makes the Flash suffer by doing such horrific things as killing the Flash's wife. So Thawne explains to Wally and the reader that the 25th century is nearly free of crime. However, there are those who yearn to know what it would be like to be the partner of one of the late 20th century's heroes. For Thawne, he goes to pretty obsessive lengths to go back in time and meet his hero, his friend, he says, Barry Allen. And we get a sense that even before going to these lengths, Eobard is not a well man. And it really comes across here in the next few pages. He has plastic surgery to make himself look like Barry. He collects a number of Flash artifacts, but in order to secure the holy grail of Flash artifacts, i.e. the cosmic treadmill, which allowed Barry to travel backwards and forwards in time, he kills an antique dealer who was the current owner of the cosmic treadmill. He secures the well-worn memoir of Barry Allen that's missing a number of pages, but he reads the surviving contents thoroughly, and he uses the rest of his fortune to gain the materials needed to recreate the accident that gave Barry Allen his powers. So here we see, at least in the post-crisis era, that Eobard Thawne went through the same accident with the lightning and the chemicals splashing over him, and that the powers don't come from his suit, they come from within him. Thawne then explains that the treadmill had been poorly trained, and so when he came back in time, he found himself flung too far in the future, having missed the chance to meet or even to be his hero. The trip back in time left Thawne an amnesiac, and he dropped the memoir in the alley. He drifted until he came upon the Flash Museum, which he broke into, no doubt using his ability to vibrate through solid objects such as walls. Now, the memoir was missing pages that identified who the Reverse Flash was, but an exhibit in the museum sent Thawne into shock as he learned that he was the Flash's greatest enemy. And this shock led to Thawne believing that he was Barry, and from there he sought out Wally and Jay. And for his part, Wally says, "I believe you. I believe this was a really traumatic event for you, and no doubt the shock did make you think that you were, or that you are, Barry. But now you know who you are." And Thawne explains that now that his memories are back, he has no intention of going back to his time. He intends to destroy his former hero's legacy. And he baits Wally by claiming that he and Barry are actually very much the same, like brothers. And this is interesting, given that years later, Wade would introduce the character of Cobalt Blue and the concept of a centuries-long Allen Thawne family feud. Further spoilers here, for those of you who don't know, Cobalt Blue is not a very well received or remembered concept. Wade would explain that the Allens actually had twins, and Barry's twin brother was taken by the doctor and given to a couple who had recently lost their child. That couple was the Thawns, and they would raise Barry's twin as Malcolm Thawne, and he would become the villainous Cobalt Blue. And this would lead to the Allen Thawne family feud, which ended with the birth of Bart Allen as a result of a marriage that united the Allen and Thawne families. Now, Thawne attempts to destroy the treadmill, but Wally says that will change history and change Thawne's personal timeline. If Thawne destroys the treadmill, then in the 25th century, Eobard will not have the means to go back in time. His very existence as the Reverse Flash will be quite possibly wiped out. Thawne doesn't care, but before he destroys the treadmill, he continues to attack Wally. Hal returns for round 2, along with Max and Johnny. They again have no luck, as Thawne breaks their hold on him and he races off. So this gives time for everybody to visit Jay in the hospital. Jay puts it all together, and he now realizes why Thawne always had such a deep-rooted hatred for Barry. And this actually helps piece things together for longtime readers, as now we understand why in the pre-crisis the Reverse Flash launched such vicious personal attacks against Barry. We learned that the memoir is missing a number of pages. However, there's one thing in the memoir that does provide some happy news to come, something which Wally and Wade do not give to readers just yet. They've got to wait a little while for that. Now, we do get to see the inside cover of this memoir, and there is something about it which is kind of creepy to me. It says Eobard Thawne, citizen, and then he has a serial code on it. And the letters are INFTO, and that's no doubt a nod, once again, to Carmine Infantino. I'm just thinking that for all the 25th century appears to be a pretty peaceful place, free of crime, it does seem disturbing that citizens would have a serial number. Now, to put a positive end on it, one could say, well, perhaps in the future, instead of having separate health card numbers, birth certificate numbers, student IDs, driver's license numbers, maybe you just have one serial number and it's your one-stop shop. But at the same time, the idea of giving a person a serial number also suggests that maybe there's a little too much involvement by a higher authority. I don't know, it just struck me as odd. I mean, normally in our time when we buy a book, we will write our name in it, but we don't go writing our health insurance number or our social security number inside. Getting back to the story, on the news, we see that Thawne has broken into the Channel 4 news station. He's attacked the mayor, and he's threatening to kill Linda. Somewhere along the way, Thawne's plastic surgery was undone, and he now has his original facial features. While he races to the station, and he's able to get Linda away safely. Thawne initially has the upper hand in the ensuing fight against Wally, but then he makes his tragic mistake. He says that he will make the city forget Barry, and that from now on, when people remember the Flash, they will remember Eobard Thawne. This brings about a change in Wally that Max foresaw. He becomes faster, and he takes Thawne down. He tricks Thawne into getting on the treadmill and racing back to the 25th century. The heroes catch up. And Hal now sees that Wally did not race into the future. Rather, Wally vibrated so quickly that he appeared to travel into the future, and so Thawne got on the treadmill in an effort to catch up with with Wally in the time stream. But such is not the case. And Wally explains to Hal and Max and Johnny that his feeling is that when Eobard gets back to 25th century, it's going to leave him an amnesiac once again, given the trauma that he experienced in coming back in time. And Wally theorizes that while his memories will return, his memories of this conflict will not. Wally has a feeling that Eobard was able to hold on to a scrap of his costume, i.e. his Reverse Flash costume, and so that will plant the idea in his head that his first and greatest enemy was Barry Allen. And so when the others ask Wally how he can be so sure of this, Wally says, well, we don't see the space-time continuum collapsing around us. So this makes good sense to everybody. It also makes really good sense to the reader because now it doesn't replace the Silver Age origin of the Reverse Flash. Rather, it adds a unique element to that. So we still have that great Silver Age story where Barry donates a spare Flash costume to the time capsule. In the future, Eobard is a small-time crook, perhaps because of the deeply buried subconscious memory of having committed crimes somewhere in the past. And so when he takes the spare Flash costume and he puts it on, sure, there may be some residual speed energy in there, but it really reactivates the Speed Force powers, which have been lying dormant inside Eobard's body for some time. And then putting on that costume, again, doesn't make him remember coming to the late 20th century and taking on Wally West, but it does activate this deep-rooted hatred of Barry Allen, which leads him to go back time and again to the late 20th century to try to defeat Barry Allen. And because he's a time traveler, Eobard forced to realize that he cannot kill his greatest enemy lest it destroy his own timeline. However, he can make his enemy, Barry Allen, suffer to an immeasurable degree by going after and killing those who he loves most. So just to cap off the first conclusion to the story arc, Hal says that at one time he saw Barry Allen as the greatest hero he had ever met, but after seeing what Wally did, going to such lengths to preserve his mentor's memory, Hal now sees Wally as a great hero and perhaps the greatest hero he has ever known. Folks, I still have some more stuff to say about the return of Barry Allen's story arc. There's an excellent epilogue in this issue that I do need to talk about. I do want to talk about the legacy of the return of Barry Allen's story arc. So I'll be coming back to you folks with a third part to episode 114 in 7 days. So until that week has come and gone, this class is dismissed.